Now that PlayStation first-party development studios have been all put under one big umbrella, and Spider-Man being part of that cinematic, marvelous universe, I gotta say that the logo made me giggle a bit when I saw the cheek and tongue Miles Morales splash screen. I mean, come on, Marvel Cinematic intro, PlayStation Studios intro, it was kinda cool because it was so cheeky. I love how the game starts out by giving a nod to Sony's Into the Spider-Verse intro, where both Mileses are listening to music on their headphones. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, dude, you gotta see it. Visually, it's astonishing and the story is solid as well. Now, on more than one occasion, I said that I love Spidey 2018 on PS4 because it was so much fun. Well, in this one, I swear to you that what I felt during, I don't know, the first 4 minutes of the game is hard to describe and maybe even to believe in some cases. But as Miles was shifting from normal kid to superhero and he was going like, "Let's go!" I promise you, I was the exact same way he was, just I was sitting on my fat ass planet on the chair. I felt this childish grin of joy on my face because I started to feel my muscles contort in an abnormal position and I was like,
I can't stop smiling! I have got cramps in my cheeks!
Let me put it like this. If you grew up with action fighting movies, especially with Van Damme movies, you surely remember the scenes where he got his ass kicked by the bad guy and then he gathered all of his strength and discipline to get up in slow motion, of course. And when you saw Van Damme mopping the floor with the bad guy, you felt such excitement as a kid and you felt like you were beside Van Damme rooting for him. Nothing else mattered to you in that moment, it was pure joy. Well, that's exactly how I felt when I pressed R2 to swing for the first time in Miles Morales. Also, the fight with Rhino was amazingly choreographed in the beginning of the game. When I was fighting the bad guys on the street, I wasn't expecting that mini spectacle Peter was pulling off with Rhino in the background. The funny thing about it is that if you're not paying close attention, you can easily miss it during certain points. In my opinion, just because of these scenes alone, Insomniac raised the bar a bit by making you be Spider-Man in one instance and seeing another Spider-Man in another instance, sort of like this comedical play or sketch, if you will. Afterwards, the Rhino chase in the mall was something out of an Avengers movie for me. Insomniac managed to siphon the spirit of what Spider-Man is and somehow pour it into this game in such a manner that made me think that it would be extremely hard for another studio to pull off such set pieces in such an explosive and wildly entertaining method. Sadly, the fight with Rhino later in the game was extremely disappointing to me compared to this one. But I've said my piece about it in the review video I made. Since the first Spider-Man on PS1, it's the same goddamn fight over and over again. And also, who really cares about this one-dimensional character? There are so many awesome villains in Spider-Man to pick from, and they chose to recycle an old one from the first game. Now, I want to shift the paradigm a bit and talk about something more creatively inclined from a character building point of view rather than a spectacle. Contained within the main story, that's basically your run-of-the-mill evil corporate guy that threatens the wellness of a community with his greed, is also the story of the main hero. Miles Morales starts out as a novice, goes through self-doubt in the beginning.
I'm New York's only Spider-Man. Please don't screw this up.
He's so nervous because he's starting to feel the weight of the responsibility of being Spider-Man. And this scene made a huge impression on me because it made me feel this intense sense of emotion alongside his own. And by the end, he owns it like nobody's business. Now, I grew up with Spider-Man on Fox Kids and I've known Peter for more than 20 years at this point. Also, as you well know, there have been a lot of cinematic iterations of the character. Some for better.
Captain? Big fan of Spider-Man?
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Just...
Hey, everyone.
Good job.
And some for worse. But Miles, on the other hand, is completely new to me. I only met him during the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and that's kind of it. Now, given the fact that this media format in which I see the character is a video game, I got to be him for a short while, and I gotta tell you, he grew very fast on me right from the start. What I liked about him, well, besides that his personality is tailor-fitted to be a superhero, is that he is every bit as endearing as Peter Parker, if not more in some instances. When I think about Peter, I see this towering pillar of strength that no matter what, will always manage to defeat everything in his path, because since his first appearance in 1962, he's kinda done just that. But with Miles, it's a fresh start, and the word start is key here. Now, okay, sure, he did go through the entire rigmarole of having a loved one killed before becoming a superhero, but except that, he was, as I've said, a pleasant surprise. And I really admire how Insomniac managed to differentiate the two through various means. Dialogue is an obvious one. Take Peter, for instance.
How are you drinking?
Very, very carefully. Okay, go time.
He's all cocky when he talks, and he should be, because he's a well-seasoned warrior at this point. However, Miles adopts a more childlike tone that highlights his insecurities and his noviceship.
Look, I don't know if I'm ready to fly solo. I screwed up today big time with the helicopter.
But then you delivered big time. You saved my bacon, Miles.
I got lucky.
I really like this contrast because it reiterates the difference between the two Spider-Mans. And through all of that Miles' self-doubt and so on, he slowly but surely starts to own the fact that he is Spider-Man, and it all culminates with this scene.
Don't make me kill you! You can't win! Why do you keep fighting?
Because I'm Spider-Man.
Which, in my opinion, is a missed opportunity for recreating the impact of this scene.
And I am Iron Man.
I said missed opportunity because it lacks the epicness and emotion of the Iron Man scene. Okay, granted, Tony did say that at the end of a 7-year-old franchise while sacrificing himself for the good of the universe, but still, they could have tried something in a more tear-jerky manner. I mean, for me, the antagonist's final moments were way more emotional than his coming-of-age moment.
It's okay. You can't just let go. Let go.
And the problem I have with this is because it was supposed to be the climax the story was going for. The kid finally became a complete superhero mind and body, and it was more of a sad whimper than a huge chill down your spine kind of moment, which, by the way, I felt during Finn's sacrifice, even though I didn't really care about her during the entire game. But screenplay aside, I gotta give it up to the actor behind Miles, Najee Jeter, who also voiced Sam in The Last of Us. He does a phenomenal job of portraying this character, and I would love to see him even more often in games given his proven talent. Another subtle way in which this difference between the two Spideys is presented to us is through Miles' quirky ways of web swinging. Peter's display is precise and mature, whereas Miles is more or less clumsy like a kid having fun. This can give the player the impression that he hasn't mastered the moves. In my opinion, this is a narrative visual stroke of genius that many people might not even have picked up during their playthrough. But nothing, and I mean nothing, tells the visual tale better than the Into the Spider-Verse suit. By that, I'm referring to the low frame rate animation of Miles together with the comic book hit words. I mean, fans of the animation like me will go bonkers while in combat. I don't know about you, but to my eyes, it looks amazing. And the fact that I get to be Miles Morales is so immersive that I feel like Miles has been ripped out of the movie and landed on my PS4. To tell you the truth, I really enjoyed this visual nuance because it proved just how in-depth the writing is at Insomniac Games and how much effort they poured into this game for fans to enjoy. And these visual cues go perfectly hand in hand with the hip-hop music from the background during the main points from the story, like this one for example, where Miles goes through a maturing phase and starts to own the fact that he is Spider-Man and not just an unworthy ripoff. This rite of passage is important for the character as well as the main story because in the beginning of the game, he's nervous and bears the excitement of a child opening a Christmas present while still wearing his pajamas.
Hey, look, check it. Christmas present from Spider-Man.
Open it.
To me, that conveys an untainted soul, someone to care about and to root for, like an untarnished fresh hero, if you will. But this is all about him coping with being Spider-Man. His other side, his public identity, is heavily portrayed in the story as well. In the apartment scene, Insomniac managed to paint a great fleshed-out portrait of his family and friends. And in a way, they invite us into Miles' home where he is most vulnerable. I appreciated this scene a lot, and during it, I actually felt like I was a guest there for Christmas. Now, I'm sure to some of you it was boring and tedious having to play vinyl records and check the electric panel and so on. But from my point of view, that scene was way more than that. Because from a narrative standpoint, it allowed me to take a peek inside the intimacy of the person behind the mask, so I, as a player, could familiarize myself even more with him. Granted, if I was like 17 or 20 years old, I'd be like, boring. And this moment reminded me a lot of another moment from another game called Heavy Rain, which, by the way, if you're a big narrative gaming fan, you should totally play this interactive thriller. The story is so good. Now, the similarities arose in my mind because in this scene you're playing with a main character that's taking care of a baby. At first glance it might seem tedious, but by the end of the game, when it hits you, you understand the underlying psychology of that scene and why that was so important to exist. Because just like in Miles Morales, it offers the player context or a complete picture of the character's position inside the main narrative. It makes you understand who he is from every angle, and as long as that angle is well written, then the story achieves what it set out to do in the first place, to completely immerse us. Basically, that's everything that I loved about Miles Morales, and sure, there are some extra features of the game I could go into, but I feel that between this video and my spoiler-free review, I covered kinda almost every aspect of the game. All I have left to say now is the usual like, subscribe, and comment if you want to support us, and if you really like what we do, you could support us on Patreon as well. The Patreon is there so that we can finally do this full-time without second jobs or main jobs depending on how you look at it. We really believe in our content, and all we aim for is to gather enough like-minded people so we can pursue our dreams of making high-quality videos. We have a bunch of plans for the future, but they won't see the light of day without your help. See you next time, where I'm gonna talk a bit about pre-orders and why you should almost never spend your money on a product that for all intents and purposes doesn't really exist until the day it finally comes out. As always, thank you for watching and stay safe.